So we are finally ready now. The much anticipated matchup between the Oakland Raiders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Super Bowl 37.
Become the captain of the ship. Cannons like the loaded, so it's time to flip the script. Cruising through the bay on that Buccaneer battleship, sold up, screaming out, so Buck, what you heard? So Buck, what you heard? So Buck, what you heard? So Buck, what you heard?
Welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'm joined by special contributor Evan Winter. How you doing today, Evan?
Doing good, man. How's it going?
Going good, man. Another week into the free agency, and a lot of moves are being made around the NFL. And let's include the Tampa Bay Bucs in that as well. And you can see that they went out and re-signed Ndamukong Suh. And we had a mulligan do over here, so we kind of talked about it a little bit, but we're gonna actually do this live now. We're gonna actually put this out here. So I want to jump right in here and get your thoughts on, what do you think, with this move to bring Ndamukong Suh back? I know there are some holes on that defensive line, and what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I like it in terms of football. As a football move, rather. He brings a lot to this defense. Obviously, he's excellent in stopping the run. Brings a hint of pass rush, but a nonstop motor, a lot of violence to the position. I know that sounds bad in 2020, but hey, it is what it is. But overall, $8 million was a stretch to begin with. But once you see $10 million after incentives, which I think, if I read correctly, they're based off a playoff appearance. They're not based off individual stats, which, if that's the case, I could be wrong on that. If that's the case, then not really sure what that has to do with anything in terms of individual performance. But anyway, that's just too high, man. Scott Reynolds of Pewter Report reported back at the Combine that Suh would be happy to sign for about 7.25 or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing what he said. And I don't know what happened there. So, yeah, I was hoping for like 6 to 7 million. Somebody like William Golston, who's kind of a one-trick pony at this point, is only making 4.75. Obviously, Suh brings just a bit more to the table than Golston. But, nothing that warrants $8 to $10 million. Like I said, 6 to 7 would be fitting. But outside of that, I like it. The defense, the run defense should be right back intact next year. However, I do think it's going to take a little bit of a step back without Carl Nassib. He was a big component of the run defense. And honestly, they could have used this $10 million or potential $10 million to bring Nassib back, which I honestly would have rather seen. Overall, I would give the move a C. So, C's get degrees. That's what they say. So,
yep.
It works.
Yeah, there you go, man. And I can kind of see what they're talking about. They want to keep as much of that defensive line together as possible. Is it possible? And I know what are you hearing from the guys over Bucs Nation? I mean, what, or have you talked to anybody, or what are you hearing? I mean, as far as this move,
we haven't really talked too much about it in terms of the chat. I think the overall consensus, though, is that it was a lot of money. However, we are comfortable with Suh being back on the team. It's not like he's a bad teammate or a bad person.
Oh, not at all.
Nothing like that. So, and he's still a good player. So, and he still fits in his defense. He played 77% of snaps last year. That was the most out of all their defensive linemen. So he's a big part of this defense.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, but seeing a lot of people on Twitter, though, a lot of people are happy with the move. A lot of people are saying, I saw a couple people on Twitter saying that they thought it was the best move of the offseason so far, which they
Wow.
yeah, I don't know if they meant that on a certain
That's saying a
point.
lot.
Hey, yeah. I mean, to each their own. You know, everybody's
Yeah.
got their opinion. But
Yeah.
there's another signing the Bucs had recently that I think might have been just a little bit bigger. But either way, people seem happy with it. And like I
Yeah.
said, overall, I'm meh about it. But that's only because of the price, and that's just me being a little bit of a stickler. So don't worry, y'all. Don't let me drag you down.
You know what? I'm good with the move. Like you, I thought he would sign for a little bit less, and just kind of be able to grab maybe one or two more pieces out there,
Right.
to shore up this team. What the Bucks lost in free agency, I see that they've got you bring back your Shaq Barrett, you bring back a JPP. Now you brought back Ndamukong Suh. You just hope that everybody stays healthy. Eric Moreno was talking about Anthony Nelson as a possible contributor to this defense as well. So guys like that, I mean, I like what they've done with this defense a lot more than what we've seen in previous years. So at this point, I'm good with the move. Like you, I'm good with the move. Let's see how it all works itself out, as the season progresses. Because to me, it's about the playoffs. I hear other people talking about 8-8, and no, that's not acceptable.
No.
As much as fans, people that buy tickets, just people in general that support this team, they deserve a playoff game. They deserve to go to the playoffs. They deserve to see a playoff win, even a run at the Super Bowl. And if this is what the GM and the coach thinks is the right direction, this is kind of what you kind of have to roll with. So
100%.
I'm good. I'm okay with it, man. If this is going to work for Jason Light, if this is going to work for Bruce Arians to get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the playoffs, this is what I want to see. Then I'm good with that. So and again, this kind of goes into another subject, which was I don't know, it's kind of a head scratcher to me, and I don't know how to really take this. But Bruce Arians talking about the offensive line. When you talk about DeMar Dotson, I think he's an unrestricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. What do you do? I mean, you're low on money right now with the signings that you've made so far. And I guess as I'm looking at who's available on the streets right now, is it where you're going into the draft? Is this where you're going to find your offensive lineman in the draft?
Yeah, you hope that the plan is to still take an offensive tackle at 14, one of the big four, hopefully there, or at least try to trade back and still grab maybe a Josh Jones in the later ends of the first round, something like that. The kid out of Houston. Definitely still need to bring some more help in on the offensive line. You've got the starting four back from last year with Kappa, Jensen, Marpet, and then Smith. And then you now have Joe Haig, who was just signed last week, who has 22 career starts, and he looks pretty good. He definitely could be a serviceable starter. But
where do you see, where would you put him? You're the GM. You brought this guy in. Now you put your head coach hat on. Where do you put him at?
Right tackle for sure. He can. The cool thing though is he can play left tackle as well. He could be the swing tackle, and he can also play guard. I mean, he had 11 starts in combined at left guard and right guard. So he's played all over the offensive line so far during his career. He's extremely versatile. He's really athletic. So that really helps out a lot. He's got some pretty decent power. However, I don't know if he's a foundational piece. And one of these guys that you
think he's more like a transitional piece?
Yeah, I think more, and I would rather just see him be a really, really good depth piece, like the Titans and Dennis Kelly last year. Dennis Kelly was their swing tackle, and he started the first 4 games of the season at left tackle when Taylor Lewan was suspended, and then ended up going back and came in during heavy packages and was a really, really good injury replacement. And now he got signed to a really big deal, or not a big deal, like $7-8 million deal. Either way, he got signed to pretty decent money after the season, and now he's a starter. Haig could possibly follow that type of path. However, I don't know. And if one of those tackles are there at 14, I am much more willing to pay him $2 to $4 million to be a really, really good backup player and somebody we can rely on in terms of depth and have draft a right tackle and have him be the starter for the foundation and for years to come. Because you got to think about it this way too. You got to keep your costs down on the offensive line at some point. You're paying
Yeah.
Ryan Jensen, or you're paying Jensen $10 million. You're paying Ali Marpet $11 million. You're paying Donovan Smith $14 million. You're not going to be able to afford to put all this money into the offensive line. So you've got to keep costs down somewhere. And drafting a right tackle this year will help do that for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too. Again, guys, I want you guys to understand. I want everybody to understand. I support this team. Whatever this team is going to do is what they're going to do, and I'm 100% behind it. There have just been some things that have happened that I'm like, wow, they could have diverted this money to something else. Personally, I will say this. This team is not a quarterback away from the Super Bowl. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be very competitive. I mean, and keep in mind, the Buccaneers roster is fluid. This is not even close. This is night and day to what you're going to see when they kick off in the first game of the season. But just as of right now, just what they have right now, I don't know. I mean, we could talk about running back. I mean, we're going to get to running back, but with the offensive line and the statement that was made, do you feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have depth along that offensive line? I've felt like over the past 4 years, maybe longer, they've been thin on that offensive line. When an injury occurs, you're kind of struggling, and it just hasn't boded well for the running game or the quarterback position.
Right now, excuse me. Right now, at this very moment, I would say no, they don't have depth. You've got one guy who can play right tackle in Joe Haig. I mean, Donovan Smith could slide over there, but that's your starting left tackle. Ali Marpet could play center, so you've got backup at center. But then who's going to replace Ali Marpet if he has to move to center? If it's Joe Haig, then somebody's got to step up and replace him at right tackle. If Alex Kappa goes down, you've got unproven guards in Aaron Stinney and Zach Bailey, who are still really, really raw.
Yes.
So no, they definitely need to draft a right tackle high. Like I said, that way hopefully that slides Haig back. Or if he can't beat Haig out in camp, the first round pick can't beat out Haig, then he can be the backup. And that I'll be okay with that for a first year. That would be disappointing, yes. But overall, it will be somebody that we could eventually plug in. I mean, that's what the Colts did with Braden Smith. Braden Smith was a second-round pick, and he was behind Haig. Haig got hurt. Smith took over, and now Smith's the starter, and now Haig's in Tampa Bay. So there's all different kinds of ways they could shake out. But yet, no, to answer your question, no, I don't feel like they have depth right now. They don't have depth now.
Yeah, and Andy Finley, he brings up an interesting point. I wonder, could the Bucs go to a Donovan Smith and say, hey, can we possibly restructure your contract or something like that? They're paying this guy a lot of money. And, I'm just an outsider looking in. I don't think they've gotten a return on their investment on this right here. I feel like Donovan Smith was in the right place at the right time because there was nobody else out there that the Bucs could have said, okay, if you want to go out to free agency, we're going to bring this guy in and plug him in, and he would just take over right where this line left off, if not upgraded. There just wasn't, at that moment, there wasn't anybody out there, and there was nobody to be drafted that would have come in, that of 100% that could have come in and done what Donovan Smith is doing.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have made much sense for Bruce Arians to leave his potential franchise quarterback in Jameis Winston without somebody protecting his blind side in a crucial contract year that he needs to prove what he can do. That just wouldn't have made sense. That right there would have been setting him up for failure to begin with, and that's been coaching malpractice. Now, when it comes to restructuring the contract, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure this year that you can't do anything about it because what happened is $27 million of Smith's deal was guaranteed at signing, and that was this year's salary. So that means the Bucs already paid out the $14.5 million last year. That money's already been paid. It's already on the books. Now, when it comes to next year, the Bucs can cut Smith and not not suffer any dead cap, so they would save the remaining $14 million he's going to cost next year. Now next year they could definitely restructure for next year. Maybe they offer him. Maybe he plays. I thought he played well last year. I thought he was solid. I might get lambasted for that, but that's okay if it happens. but
yeah, well, what you and you know what? Just you had to put this out there. You had to look at the whole body of work. It's not the plays that I saw him doing the Matador thing, and I'm just like, I'm putting my hand on my face, and but just as the body of work goes, he got better as the season progressed. They, as a matter of fact, the line, they were a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year.
And so maybe he builds off of last year. He plays really well this year, and maybe the Bucs offer him an extension. I know this is making some people's ears bleed hearing this scenario play out, but maybe he, like I said, he plays well enough to get an extension next year. Maybe they restructure his number next year to where it's a little bit lower, and then puts some of that money in the extra years of the extension, so to speak. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you can mess with NFL contracts, but like I said, I'm pretty sure. I would say I'm 80% sure that there's nothing they can do about his salary for this year.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you look at what Cameron Brate was willing to do just to kind of help the team out and put him in a better position. So, just kind of where the Bucs are right now. We're just gonna have to see if they can work some magic in that draft. I mean, what do you do at running back? I mean, now we've talked about the offensive line. Let's kind of stay close to that. Ronald Jones is not your every down back. I mean, I mean, as far as I can see from him, he's not every down back. And Daria Gumbawale is definitely not. He's not Peyton Barber. So it's like, what do? You have to at some point you have to address this running game, and again, there's so many holes that I see. I mean, as far as depth or as far as quality positions that the Bucs still need to address. To be very honest.
Yeah, let's just hope, and this will kind of go into one of the topics we were going to talk about. Let's just hope they don't take a running back in the first round at 14. That to me is worst case scenario. That would just be a complete waste of a pick. You could easily, if let's say all the 4 top offensive linemen are gone, the top tackles are gone, you could trade back. If Javon Kinlaw's there, you could take him. I would be okay with that. That would be a long-term replacement for Sue. There's all different kinds of things you could do except take a running back at 14 overall. I will die on this hill. I will gladly die on this hill. Now, the second round, maybe. If you land one of these top tackles, maybe. I still would rather see a wide receiver. If we're going to go luxury pick in the second round, I would rather, because the Bucs need a wide receiver 3, and Godwin's got a big extension coming up.
Right.
Mike Evans' cap hit is not going anywhere anytime soon. So, they've got a lot to think about at that position in the future. I would rather see wide receiver go in the second round. But the sweet spot to me is the third round for a running back. I've seen Cam Akers fall as far to the third round. If that could happen, dude, I would be all in. He would be a perfect complement for Rojo. Honestly, though, I think if we beef up the offensive line, I think Rojo can get it done. I'm with you. He's not a 3-down back right now. He's got to get better in pass protection. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what
as far as handling the workload in a good way, I think he could do it. But third round of the draft. That's what I hope they do for running back. Third round or later, I would be completely fine with that.
Yeah, and a lot of that, they kind of had to abandon the run last year because of the positions they were on the field, where they were on the field, where they had to either play from behind or, they couldn't play the style of game that they wanted to play. What I will say is, from what I saw from Ronald Jones from his rookie year to the next year, I was encouraged by it. And he's one of those guys that I think he's going to continue to get better. And I think, this is just putting this out there. I think he's going to end up with a big contract. I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. I really do. I feel like he'll be put in a position where they can utilize his skill set a whole lot more. So it's just one of those things, man. I think that with Ronald Jones, I think you're going to see a resurgence from him. And there's a guy, there are running backs out there on the street. For instance, what are your thoughts on like a Carlos Hyde?
I wouldn't mind that, honestly. He would be a good power back. He would be a nice change of pace to what Rojo offers,
Yeah, and for me, just kind of watching a lot of the 49ers games last year and seeing what he did, I think he ended up with like 1,034 yards rushing.
Something like that.
Yeah, so I really I like what he was able to do, and he was able to stay healthy. So that was one of the big things for me, is that he was able to stay healthy. He got out there and did what he needed to do. It would be nice to have somebody like that in the backfield to complement a Ronald Jones, because as much as I like Peyton Barber, I don't really know how to describe it. I feel like there are better backs out there that you can upgrade at that position.
I've been screaming this guy's name for a while, and now I'm especially doing it. There was always a chance. Chris Thompson from the Redskins.
Yeah.
I've liked him for a long time. Great pass catching back. He's good in pass protection. He'd be a really good third down back to come in and kind of spell Rojo if Rojo can't handle the load in pass protection. And now with Peyton Barber going to Washington, I thought for a little while he would stay in Washington, but now with Barber in Washington, that's AP, Darius Geis, and Peyton Barber.
Yeah.
He's out.
He is the odd man out.
Yeah, Chris Thompson's not coming back. I would think I would really like to see him out there a lot, or down here. Sorry.
Yeah, most definitely. And that would be a good fit for him. But again, just getting
you got to worry about injuries. Though. Injuries are a big thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that, because we were talking about Carlos Hyde last year, and the question was, what about those injuries? What he can't stay healthy, and then he turns around and he has a good season, and I don't know. I just there are some other. What are your thoughts? I know we talked about it last week, but Devonta Freeman. I mean. Is that an option to bring in here? But I would say he's a lot similar to Ronald Jones in ways, and then you have to worry about injury. So
if they brought him in on like a 1 year, $4.5 million deal or something like that, which is honestly semi-realistic, I think he's going to look for more of something like $5 million, maybe $6 million. But 4.5, I would be okay with that.
Yeah,
because he offers a lot, and I think in a limited role, he would definitely still probably be a lot less likely to get hurt if in a limited role.
Yeah. It's interesting when these players are coming into free agency. Like, for instance, Freeman last year. If Freeman were coming out last year, I'm sure he would have gotten signed by now. You look at some of these quarterbacks. Cam Newton last year, if he were to have been released last year, he would have signed almost immediately, just because the climate of quarterbacks was totally different last year compared to this year. It's just like we talked about this last week, it's unprecedented the number of quality players that have come out in free agency and gone to another team to kind of change the way that team is looking at everything. You look at Todd Gurley going to the Atlanta Falcons. The one thing that doesn't, and I shouldn't say it doesn't concern me, it does concern me, but the Buccaneers have been incredible stopping the run. So, I think that if, you can keep this defensive line intact and, add a few pieces here and there, I think, the run, they'll still continue to be able to stop the run. So that's not so much of an issue, but other teams that the Atlanta Falcons face, having a Todd Gurley back there, and you've got Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and, some of the other players that they have. They're going to be formidable. As much as I hate Atlanta, I can't stand them, but they're going to be a formidable team this year.
Well, let's hope. That's what they've said the last couple of years.
But then I keep remembering Dirk Cutter is the offensive coordinator, right. So there's that.
Exactly. So they're already behind a couple steps in my book.
And B. Loggins in the chat had mentioned something interesting. He said there were reports that the Bucs went after Melvin Gordon, but they couldn't close the deal on that. Had you heard anything like that?
No, we haven't heard anything like that. But not saying that's not true. I
Yeah.
mean, it could definitely be true. But honestly, I'm glad they couldn't close the deal if that's the case, because
Yeah.
it's just $8 million now. But honestly, I don't know. If you if you were to ask me, would I rather pay him the $8 million or Sue the $8 million? I'd probably still say Sue. So yeah,
Yeah, I would too. I just he's been in the league I don't know how many years, and he's been injured the majority of that time. I just I don't know. I'm just not 100% comfortable. But again, I was wrong about Carlos Hyde, so there's that.
I think he's a really, really underrated back. And I can understand why people have the injury concerns and stuff, because he's only played, I think, one full season healthy,
Yep.
if that.
Yep.
But the dude has extremely good vision. He's got great contact balance. He's a tough runner. He's got some speed. He can catch the ball. He's a really, really good back. But I just don't like paying running backs that much money. So, and I know that sounds selfish and stupid, because you should reward people for the good things they do. I just don't like paying running backs that much. So $8 million is a little too high for me. I like to stay about the $5-6 million range. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, but it'll be interesting to see what he does in Denver. I mean, they've got it. Mike Munchak is one of the best offensive line coaches in the league.
Yep.
So he should have a good offensive line to run behind, and he's got Philip Lindsay back there too. So
Yeah.
he's got a good back who can take some reps off of him whenever he needs a breather.
Yeah. All right. So while we're on the subject of offense, I really want to stay on offense right now before we jump over to defense, which I'll get to that in just a moment. Any other holes that you're seeing? Any other? Are you thinking right now about a backup quarterback? Are we good at backup quarterback? What?
Definitely bringing some competition there for sure.
Yeah. And,
safety's another spot.
Quarterback. Yeah, we're gonna jump over to defense, and you know, I do want to talk about the one guy that I'm gonna be honest, and folks know me. Brashard Perryman, I was good with him coming to Tampa. This was all on paper. This was before, you know, camp or any of the other good stuff happened. And then, man, game 5, game 6, I wanted to launch this guy into the sun or curb stomp him or something, just because of the passes he was dropping. And then, lo and behold, the back end of the season, here's this guy, you know, he's playing like the receiver you thought you were going to get in Baltimore when he was drafted. So it was just incredible, the turnaround that he had to get where he is. And now we fast forward, he's in New York with the Jets, and we're in need of a number 3 receiver. So with that position, what do? Do you look at Scotty Miller? Do you look at any of the wide receivers that we have? I mean, you go from Mike Evans to Chris Godwin to a steep drop off to the number 3 receiver. Do you try to get somebody in the draft, or do you try to get somebody in free agency? What do you do in that number 3 receiver position?
If you're asking me, I sign Chris Godwin to an extension, so I have Mike and Chris, and then I draft a receiver probably in the 3rd or 4th round. I mean, that's, to me, because the way I look at it is Scotty Miller could play a John Brown type of role. A John Brown type of role for the Bucs. However, John Brown, I don't know if you could rely on him as a 3rd receiver.
No, you couldn't.
And this type of offense, yes, Scotty Miller will definitely have an impact. But yeah, I don't know if you can rely on him. And Justin Watson, at this point, I like the guy, but I couldn't rely on him as a 3rd wide receiver either. So you draft a guy in the 3rd or 4th round, you develop him, and then that way you have a good young core for the next 5 years. And then whatever quarterback you bring in after Brady has enough weapons. And then, you know, after those 5 years are up, you can kind of decide where you want to go from there. But that's what I would do. So now like I said earlier, taking a receiver in the 2nd, if they want to go there, I wouldn't really mind that too much. But I think this is such
a luxury pick, man.
Right, it's a luxury pick, and I would rather than see them do something else. But I'm not going to, burn jerseys or anything like that. Now they take a kicker in the 2nd pick. That's a whole different story. But I wouldn't, and it's a deep draft at receiver as well.
Yeah,
so,
that's what Willie Horace just said. This deep wide receiver.
Right. yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing them take one in the third. That's what I would do. I would take one in the third or fourth and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Again, man, I just that's that one position that I've always watched that position. As the team has progressed and continuously. That's the one thing I will say the Bucs have done well since Vincent Jackson is made sure they at least have one or two receivers somewhere around. And that's something that just has always been their receiver and tight end. So I would hope that, moving forward, addressing the trenches at some point in the draft would be continuous. I know that somebody had made a comment about Robert Green. I follow Robert Green on Twitter, and he had mentioned something about getting a long-term player to play next to Vita Vea. And, I'm good with that. I think that's a great idea. I think that Joe McCoy, a lot of his years were wasted because you kept bringing in these free agents. And a lot of the times these free agents couldn't hold up their end of the deal. And, it just never really worked out. I mean, after 4 years in the league, you pretty much have an idea of who a player is. And, with a Joe McCoy, you knew who Joe McCoy was after year 5. So, why not bring somebody in who could potentially be better than him or something, address that in the draft and, try to shore up that position. I think when Lovie Smith came in and blew up the offensive line when he first got to Tampa, that was a huge setback for the offensive line. And I don't think they've ever recovered from that. But, moving forward, these are mistakes that you should really learn from. And these are things that, they should always be addressed every year, at least an offensive lineman or defensive lineman in the draft.
Javon Kinlaw would be the guy, if
B. Loggins just said that.
Yeah, if those 4 tackles aren't there, that would be the guy. He would be the perfect long-term replacement for Sue. He would go right next to Vea. They would complement each other perfectly. He could play inside. They moved Vea all over the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
They've even played him as far out as 7 tech sometimes. But Vea can line up at 3 tech, 5
The
tech.
guy's a freak. He's an athletic freak, though.
Yeah, he's crazy, and he could play inside. He's huge too. I think he's 6'6", 330 pounds or something like that.
And he runs down tight ends. So
right. So I mean, he would be the perfect complement. That's if none of the tacklers are there and the Bucs get him, then I would be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I totally get that. Hey, I do have one question for you because I know that you're keeping up with free agency and everything that's going on. I want to bring up Jameis Winston. This will probably be the last time I'll bring up Jameis Winston, until he signs somewhere or something like that. I've seen videos of Jameis Winston and he's rehabbing. Is it possible the reason he hasn't signed is because he's rehabbing from injury and he's not able to pass a physical? I mean, I don't know how that all works. And right. I was thinking maybe you may know the inner workings better than I do, because I've seen like Cam Newton had to pass a physical in Atlanta, and then, he's out in the free agency or whatever. So I was just kind of wondering if that's if that could be part of what's going on with Jameis Winston. If not, I mean, it's just one of those things that it just kind of popped in my head. I was like, yeah, he's still rehabbing, and I haven't seen a whole lot other than he's rehabbing. So I just, that's kind of where I was like, man, I'm not sure how that all works if you do have to pass a physical before you sign with a team.
Well, you definitely have to pass a physical. I mean, that's obviously what took Tom Brady so long. I mean, teams and players can agree to terms, but a lot of times I think that's what's holding up Jadeveon Clowney as well with him getting signed. I haven't heard anybody bring that up, and that's actually a really good idea or a really good thought. It could definitely be a reason. Maybe not the whole reason, but definitely a part of the reason why he hasn't signed yet. So no, man, that's certainly plausible. I don't really know specifically, and I'm not gonna try to fluff y'all up and act like I know, when I don't know. So if you can find somebody that does know, I'm really curious. Because, like I said, I mean, I'm seeing him on Instagram, and he's working out and he's doing the balance thing, and he's just not. I mean, he's throwing the ball, but I still don't think he's 100%.
and that's what I was wondering if it's something to where he can't pass a physical. So you want to see what you kind of want to see what you're getting. And I was just kind of wondering, and the same with Cam Newton, as Andy had mentioned, I don't know what you don't know what you're getting with Cam Newton just because of the injury that he had and the fact they had to shut him down and end his season early because of the injury he had. So, I mean, just these are little things that nobody's really talked about, and I would have thought that this would have been obvious, if he's rehabbing. I don't know if it's the thumb or the knee or whatever, if that's the case. So I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a good point. So kudos, man.
So just kind of I want to jump on over to defense now, since that's where Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles and everybody's really got their eye on. They think this is where the strength of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or not the strength, but the very important part of the Buccaneers playoff run is on the defensive side of the ball. So based on the moves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made so far, what are your thoughts? I mean, overall grade. What would you? I mean, early on overall grade. Where would you put the Buccaneers?
I'll give them a B plus, certainly. I mean, they've done everything they've said they wanted to do so far in free agency. They said they wanted to re-sign all their defensive free agents. They wanted to spend money on a quarterback, and then they said they're going to attack the offense in the draft. So far, 2 for 2. Hopefully, it'll be 3 for 3, and hopefully, like we talked about, it's an offensive tackle that begins the offensive attack in the draft and not a running back. But no.
What about a kicker?
Yeah,
I'm just joking. Just
yeah, but no, man. I like it so far, B plus. But the only thing is and we've talked about this a little bit. Are they betting too much on this defense? Because we know it's hard for defenses to repeat their performance from year to year. It's harder to sustain defense than it is to sustain offense in a year in to year out basis. Yeah. So let me ask you: are they betting too much on this defense?
At this point, just like and this is where we have to preface this. We're talking about this point right here. Right. We're not talking about any of the new picks that are coming after this is broadcast. We're talking about as of right now what they have on paper right now. I would say that they are. And 100 and go ahead. I'll chime in just a moment.
Okay. Well, and just how they've approached the offseason when it comes to the defense as well. Like, whenever I see players like Mackenzie Alexander getting signed on a 1-year deal for $4 million, that guy could have came in and instantly upgraded the slot corner position. That would have allowed SMB to still develop. They could have swapped in and out, and then SMB could have moved outside from time to time whenever he needed to, or just in case Jamel Dean. I mean, it just would have been depth as well. And it still would, like I said, it still would allow SMB time to develop. They're betting on that young secondary just a little too much, in my opinion. And they also missed out. And I know this guy's caught some slack over the last couple of years, but he's still a decent player, especially at this price. But they missed out on a player like Clinton Dix for $4 million. He was a 1-year, $4 million deal. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to make a move like that. But, like we said, it's a good sign that they're this comfortable. But it's also it can turn around to bite them if they're not careful.
Yeah. The one thing that concerns me, and this one that I really appreciated with the defensive line, is the veteran presence. The linebacker core, you have the veteran presence. The secondary, there's nobody, and maybe I'm wrong here, but there's just nobody back. You don't have a veteran in that either safety or cornerback in that secondary that can help these young players with the nuances of playing cornerback in the NFL. And that was the one move that I really hope that the Buccaneers would make. Get a veteran back there, somebody who, they have that mind. They know they've seen it all, and they can help some of these younger players to get up to speed a little bit faster. But again, if they're comfortable with who they have, that's the one position for me that still kind of scares me. Is the secondary position. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. and they watch way more film than I do, and they know, but again, when they were talking about the offensive line, saying, oh, we're good with who we have on the offensive line, we just need to fill one more position. That just kind of caught me by surprise. But just kind of going back to that, I would go back to 2010 as an example for any NFL team out there, just showing you how important it is to have this team played on pure talent in 2010. They didn't have hardly any veterans on this team. That was just talent that they were going out there and playing with to get that 10-win season. It's important to have that veteran presence. I think as this team has progressed, getting the right player out there, that right veteran has made a big difference. JPP. I thought JPP coming into Tampa, his mindset and his work ethic has made that line better. And Ndamukong Suh. And please, if you're a Gerald McCoy fan, I'm sorry if I'm about to offend you, but I probably am. I am happier to see Ndamukong Suh playing next to Vita Vea than I would have been to see Gerald McCoy playing next to Vita Vea. And, again, it's just, you see the work ethic, you see the mindset, you see the mentality, and that's, that's what you want to build off of. So, again, and this is just an observation. I could be 100% wrong here. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong, but I'm glad to see Suh playing next to Vita.
He definitely brings a different element of toughness to the defense and just to the team in general. I'll admit I was a Gerald McCoy fan. I like the guy. I thought he played pretty well while he was here. But Suh's he's a good player, and I'm happy to have him. So
yeah,
I'm glad to have him. Glad to have him for another year. Just wish he was a little cheaper.
Yeah. So as you're looking at this team as a whole, they pretty much got this team geared up to where it's win now. What do you see for fans outside of Brady, after Brady? So we should call it AB. I guess AB is kind of bad to say, but after Brady, you've got a lot of players that if they perform well, they're going to get huge contracts here or be looking for huge contracts. You don't know if you're going to have Bruce Arians back. I know we don't know what's going to happen, but fans are going to be fans long after some of these players are gone. And what are they left with? Are they left with a quality team, moving forward, or how is this going to work out? How do you, just based on the moves that they've made over the last 2 years, how do you see this team, moving forward?
Well, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they decide to construct their roster and who they sign and how they manage the salary cap and all that stuff. So far, they're not going out and spending or prorating a lot of money through signing bonuses and backloading contracts to where they're going to be in a huge cap situation. They're just giving out a bunch of one-year deals. A lot of them are loaded with incentives and all that stuff. I'm sorry, my cat's getting in the way. Hold on a second.
Yeah, mine's down by my feet. So,
so they're not doing anything financially irresponsible so far, and that's kind of been their MO for a long time, especially as long as Mike Greenberg's been doing contracts, and that's a good thing. And that's a really good thing. So it just really all depends on how they attack the draft, and I think this year's draft is really going to tell a lot on how they view this roster and how they see themselves moving forward in the next couple of years. Because if they do, let's say, draft a receiver at 14 or a running back at 14, then that to me signals that they think, like we're saying, that they've got all these other crucial positions or these other positions locked up. And right now they're trying to add more explosiveness, more elements to score points or get them over said hump that they think they're trying to get over.
Yeah. But again, injuries, this is the NFL. Injuries are injuries. There are going to be injuries. And that's, again, that's my concern is who's stepping up.
If you don't have depth, you're not a playoff team. So
no.
They've got to find a way to build depth.
So I don't know, man. It's just that's one of the big concerns for me. You saw what happened in the back end of the season. You lose Mike Evans, then you lose Chris Godwin, and then you're left with Perriman and Scotty Miller, and then you lose Scotty Miller. Again, this is the NFL. This can happen, and this is the one thing that just continuously concerns me here.
Yep. I mean, that's one reason when people were saying to cut Perriman for a compensatory pick. The only reason I was saying I did not want that to happen was in case Mike Evans or Chris Godwin got hurt.
And you saw what happened.
Right, and this is also Jameis's prove it year. Why are you going to limit his weapons in a prove it year? It just didn't make sense to me. It had nothing to do with how Perryman could get better. Let me just say that. Had nothing to do with that. I was just as surprised as the rest of you. But you bring these guys in, unless Bobo Wilson or VH3, there's no reason to cut them midseason. There's no.
You think so? You think that was kind of a bad idea to let to cut a. Do we know what was going on behind the scenes? I mean, as far as
with VH3,
yeah,
I see your cat's gotten.
This is algebra.
Mine's his name is Woodstock. He's up in his tower right now.
Yeah.
Call him Woody for short. But no, hell, what was the question? Sorry, the cat's got.
Oh yeah, me. Hold on, let me.
He's got you all messed up, man.
No, just we were talking about the with not Chris Godwin, but Perriman, and the compensatory pick.
Cutting VH3. Yeah.
And then we talked about VH3. Yeah, we're on VH3. Okay, we're there.
Right. The hustle thing. It was about hustle, so I don't really mind it too much. I didn't think it was a bad move. I mean, and honestly, the secondary seems, looking on paper and on tape, the secondary looked like they improved once he was let go.
Yeah, and I can't argue that because they really did. I mean, even the points per game, they were allowing was a lot better. So on the back end of the season, a lot of stuff changed.
Yep. Now, granted, the competition, they played a beat up Colts team. They played a Lions team without Matt Stafford. Right. But hey, you got to beat what's on your schedule and who's on your schedule. So at least they got that part done.
Yeah.
And hey, what gives me hope, people always say 2016, the defense looked good in 2016. We saw what happened in 2017. The thing that gives me hope about this year's team, and I know back during the 2016 run, they had a really good defensive game against the Saints. But the thing that gives me hope is the Texans game. They shut down Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and Kenny Stills. No, Kenny Stills had a good game. But they shut down a pretty good Texans offense. So that was really encouraging to see. So that's what gives me hope going into this year.
Yeah. So let's jump out, and we were talking about the Buccaneers. I want to kind of talk about the rest of the NFL because I know you got some guys in here and they're talking about specific players. And one of the big moves to me this week, I mean, as far as the NFL, is Xavier Rhodes signing with the Colts.
Yeah, he used to be a really good corner. I don't know what happened last year. Sometimes these guys, they just fall off a cliff and are never the same. But if he can get back to just,
I'm wondering, and with all these injuries, like we didn't know that. I keep bringing him up, but I didn't know Winston had a meniscus injury. I didn't know he had a thumb injury until later on in the season. There are players that play through these injuries, and you don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah, I mean Cam Brate had the hip thing.
Yeah.
Too long ago, so I mean, yeah, you never know until the very end, and that's just how these guys operate. They just come out and they do their own thing when it comes to injuries. But if he can get back to just playing solid, it'll be a great addition for the Colts. But I've got to see that happen first before I believe.
So what do you think? While we're on the subject of the Colts, what do you think of what the Colts have done?
I like it. I like what they've done. I mean, Phillip Rivers should give them enough at quarterback, should get them over the hump. Frank Reich's a really good coach. They've got a great offensive line, good running game. I think they're going to be in the market for a receiver in the draft. They'll definitely be a player in the receiver, and they've got a good, promising defense. So, getting DeForest Buckner was huge for them.
Yes,
so that's going to be gigantic. So it's going to be fun to watch them. Well, not so fun since I also watch the Titans. I like the Titans since I'm in Nashville.
Yeah,
and so those 2 games a year won't be fun, but the rest of the games will.
So, while we're on the subject of the Titans, it looks like, you pick Ryan Tannehill and you re-sign your running back. Are they poised to go back to the playoffs?
I don't know, man. They don't have any depth right now. They've got 9 draft picks in the draft, but that should help them out a lot. But in terms of proven depth, they don't have much. They're a couple of injuries away at a couple of key spots to really, really struggling. And people forget they were a 9-17 last year. Yeah, they made it to the AFC Championship, but they were 2-5 at one point, or 2-6, if I remember correctly. So it's not like they're the Chiefs or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to them for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. And another team that's really made a lot of moves is the Buffalo Bills. So,
Yeah.
so when you look at the Buffalo Bills and where they were and the players that they've brought in, I think the general manager's done a great job bringing players in to help the young quarterback and put him in a position to succeed.
Certainly, yeah. Stephon Diggs, it's going to be fun to watch. It's all about Josh Allen. If he takes the next step, they'll be right back in the playoffs, and hell, they might even be going to the AFC Championship. I mean, they should be pretty loaded this year. And with Tom Brady out of the division, it's up for the division's up for the grabs with him gone.
Yeah. Another team is the New York Jets. Since we're in the AFC, the New York Jets have really made some moves to kind of help that offense and actually help the defense as well.
Yeah, man, I like what they've done. I just don't trust Adam Gase. I think as long as he's head coach, I don't think they're going to be anything.
Every time I see his eyes, I'm just like, no, I couldn't play for this dude.
I'm good on that.
I'm not. I know I couldn't play for you, buddy. No, I'm good. And just kind of rounding it out, the Miami Dolphins have they done enough to be competitive this year?
I don't think so, not yet. But they're going to be a major player in the draft. So their draft is really going to speak volumes as to what. I mean, they did sign Byron Jones, which is a really good signing. He's going to be really well. And if they keep Xavier Howard, which I don't know if they're going to do that because he's really expensive. I think he got in trouble over the offseason. But they're going to have 2 really good corners if they do keep Xavier Howard. But I think their draft is going to tell, is really going to speak volumes to how they look at to how people look at them in this coming up in the season.
Yeah. And I think a big thing is the trenches, like we talked about. I mean, you have to really, that's kind of where you have to build a team up, really.
Right.
And I don't know. We'll see. I just kind of lost faith in Miami after Kenyon Drake. After they traded Kenyon Drake, I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. I was kind of mad the Bucs didn't get him, but
Yeah, he did well in Arizona, 1,000-yard back. They franchised him. So.
Yeah, they did. And I think if he has another season like that he will be long term. I promise you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, just kind of rounding it out, I want to jump over to the NFC South. You see the Carolina Panthers bringing in Teddy Bridgewater, who was notoriously mentioned as the second quarterback behind Tom Brady that was looked at to come to Tampa. So there was a lot of talk. So the people that had sources out there, that said that Bridgewater could potentially be coming to Tampa, hey, shout out to you guys. You guys may have been onto something. So we look at Carolina and some of the moves that they've made. I mean, but Carolina's, this is the NFC South. They're always competitive. You lose Luke Kuechly, you lose Greg Olsen, Cam Newton's no longer there. I think Bradbury's gone too.
He's a free agent right now. Or no, the Giants signed him. Sorry.
Yeah. And Devin Funchess is not there. I mean, what's the identity of this Carolina Panthers team?
It's going to be Teddy Bridgewater, man. Teddy Bridgewater and Christian McCaffrey. That's going to be the identity. They got Robbie Anderson, so they're not too worried about Bridgewater's arm, apparently. I think the issues with his arm are overblown. I think he can throw the ball downfield pretty well. Now, he doesn't have a rocket, but he can at least make deep throws. But either way, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's going to be Bridgewater, McCaffrey running the show, man. Especially
definitely
as head coach.
Yeah, for me, just watching this team, they're always competitive. It's going to be interesting to see what they do now that the Riverboat Ron era is over, and you bring in this coach, and they've made some changes, so it'll be interesting to see. And I think like you mentioned, Christian McCaffrey, that's probably the identity of the team, regardless who the head coach is or who the quarterback is. This is a Christian McCaffrey team.
For sure.
So we talked a little bit about Atlanta, and I might as well get them out of the way, because as much as I don't like them, Atlanta's made some moves. Bringing in a Todd Gurley. I think that on defense they've also made some moves as well. What do you think? Do you think this is a team that comes back and they're challenging for that NFC South crown?
It depends. It just depends on the coaching staff, man. And they got hit with injuries really bad the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like that saying, though, if you don't have depth, you're not a playoff team. So but just based off paper, yeah, I think they'll definitely be competing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we are, man. If we're talking about anything right now, it's all on paper. This is that time of the year where you can talk about this kind of thing, and you won't get blowback for this later on in the season, because you know what, there was nothing in place. I mean, we're not even at the draft at this point, but just as you're looking at this team, that's kind of where it is.
Right.
So, just kind of moving on from them, Matt Ryan, this is, Matt Ryan's window's closing. I don't know how many more years he has. He's not a Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees, first ballot Hall of Famer, who's, beat Father Time for the most part, and, has continued to play at a decent, on the back end of his career at a decent level. So, again, how much time does Matt Ryan have? They really need to do what they can to put him in a position to see if he can, win something.
Definitely. It looks like they're trying to do that as well. Mm-hmm. But, we'll see how things play out. They did give him Dirk Cutter as offensive coordinator, so that's definitely not helping him.
Yeah. For real, man. It just, to be very honest, I think that that Patriots game actually destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have not been right since that historic and magnificent game that New England played, and they just haven't been the same. So eventually they'll be able to get over that hump. I guess, I don't know, but anyway, enough about them. So I'm gonna jump in here to the New Orleans Saints, and the guy that I love to hate, Mickey Loomis, continuously making moves. And they have no cap room, but he's continuously making moves. And I just don't know how to describe it. This guy, he pulls money out of I don't know where, and he gets these guys to sign. And it's incredible. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Mickey Loomis, every year I hear the Saints are in salary cap hell, Mickey Loomis finds a way to get him out of it.
Yeah, they keep restructuring contracts. By the way, I'll probably have to close after we finish with the NFC South. Yeah, man, they keep backloading contracts, dude, and eventually, like if Drew Brees wouldn't have played this year, they still would have been on the hook for $25 million or something like that, some kind of absurd number. So they're backloading all these contracts, and it's not going to work. Or if it doesn't work, they're going to be in salary cap hell for the next 3 to 4 years, and it's going to be so hard to construct a roster down there. So if this does not work, if Brees does not win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years, it's going to be pretty miserable in New Orleans. I can promise you that. Yeah.
Hey, well, I know you've got to go, and I want to get you on the hot seat one more time. 1 minute, right. 1 minute of your time, and we'll go.
All right.
So let me know when you're ready, and I'll ask the question. I'll start the timer.
Fire away.
The New York Jets will win the AFC East. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Teddy Bridgewater instantly makes the Panthers a contender. Buy or sell?
Sell.
The Houston Texans early free agency winner or loser?
Sell. Or buy. Or win. Loser. Buy.
Loser. So they're a loser. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers early free agency winner or loser?
Winner.
Cam Newton will be a starter by the end of 2020 season. Buy or sell?
Buy.
The 49ers will return to the Super Bowl. Buy or sell?
Sell. Sell that puppy hard.
The Titans re-signing Tannehill, boom or bust?
Boom.
Todd Gurley in Atlanta, boom or bust?
Bust.
Per Bruce Arians, the offensive line is okay. Buy or sell?
Sell.
The Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Buy or sell?
Buy. Yeah.
All right, you got it. You just barely got it, man. 58 seconds.
I brushed up from last week, so I made sure to speed up the process.
Hey, man, you got to. Hey, next time you got to get some questions for me. I never lose at this, so
Okay.
it's just that steel trap up here.
All
But
right.
guys, that's pretty much it for me. We were just talking a little bit about free agency. I thought I would go around the NFL a little bit more. We'll hit some other divisions next week. Andy Finley says that he loves Nashville, amazing city. He comes from Scotland. He goes to Nashville, then he goes to Tampa, if that tells you anything. So
The three best places in the world.
there you go. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for me. And be sure to check me out this weekend. I'm going to probably be doing another podcast because I'm quarantined. I'm bored. I'll be having more free time to do stuff. So be sure to look for the links as they come up, and we'll be on. But hey, that's pretty much it for me. And we are out of here.